Hello, everyone, and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 104. My name is Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your frozen host. And we'll get to that here in just a minute. But yes, your frozen host here in this fine show for you. And who do I mean by you? Well, I mean, you, obviously, if you're listening. But who are you? You know who you are, but I'm going to tell others who you are. You are the VARs, the integrators, the managed service providers, the what other names are for them, Rich? Service providers, IT resellers, computer gurus, integrators, consultants, all of those all of those apply. If you package solutions and work with businesses to implement those solutions or do custom system building or anything pretty much in IT, you will find lots on this show to enjoy. Plus, you will get to enjoy a good solid hour or so of us having a good time talking about this stuff and going through news and all the things you need to know. Joining me this week is the man of the hour, the one who makes the trains here run on time, the super fabulous executive editor, Rich Freeman.
From well outside the polar vortex.
Yes, you are not in the polar vortex.
I am not. I'm in Seattle this week.
And joining us live and in person, although we tried this a few weeks ago and it did not work out, but he has managed to make his computery stuff work so we can see and hear him, the super awesome Dave Seibert.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here. And of course, you know what my incredible scientific fix is I swapped out for another computer.
That you know what? It's either you reboot, you hit it with a hammer, or you just get a different computer.
Yep.
One of those usually works. So good. I'm glad you're able to be here this week. I know we tried to have you on a few weeks ago, and you're not new to the show. We've had you on before, so we won't go through too much a long introduction and backstory into your amazing life. But if you could give us the high level, quick synopsis of Dave Seibert, what would you say?
Oh gosh. So, the first one is my passion is technology. It's what I love to do. So I love to talk about it, share about it. And of course, business focused. So you put technology and business together, and that's where I love to spend my time and share my knowledge and be part of great conversations like this with you guys. And if I was to share a couple logos, a lot of people probably either know me for my MSP business, 22 years IT Innovators, and I also do a quarterly technology conference, SMB Tech Fest, and run peer groups in the industry for many years, and involved in several organizations. But everything that I really do is focused back to that passion of technology and business.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in and say, when we tried to have you on 2 weeks ago, it was actually the day after your first SMB Tech Fest event of 2019, which I attended down in Anaheim. Very good show, and yeah, the timing would have been perfect to talk about that. But for folks who aren't familiar with SMB Tech Fest, actually, just tell people a little bit about what that is generally, and then also maybe what you're sort of focused on in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really is a leading conference event. I called it a boutique event. It's really focused for solution providers, and that's who the audience is. And we get several hundred at each show, and happens 4 times a year. The focus is really driving ahead in business and technology, sales and marketing, the things you need to know if you're interested in growing your business, and most people are. And
and those who aren't are going out of business.
Exactly. And we have a little bit better than about I think we're 500 to 600 attendee testimonials. So a nice little handful of testimonials that find high value in it. Partners of all sizes. We have MSPs with 300 employees, and we have MSPs that are 1 to 5, and everything in between. So probably on average, it's about 17 employees is kind of how it shakes out as an average. And as far as theme and content, we bring in leaders in the industry. Roughly, as Rich said, 10, 12 days ago, we had Jim Dubois from Microsoft. He was the former Microsoft CIO. So I had a fantastic interview with him, and he shared with the audience what it was like to be CIO, a leader at Microsoft, and actually have meetings with Bill Gates and Satya. And, it was fabulous hearing him being, quote, called to the principal's office.
And I've got to say, for a guy who in the not too distant past was the global CIO of one of the world's biggest corporations, he was about as modest and down to earth as anyone I've met in the industry. It was actually, I mean, there was just no pretense, no big shot kind of thing when he comes in the room. It just was striking to me.
Yeah, and I noticed the same thing, and I had Jim and I have chatted several times in the past, and that was one of the reasons I wanted him there. Not only does he have an incredible history with Microsoft, 24 years. He was teasing that he didn't quite, do the 25th year. But you're right. He's very down to earth, and he also has a passion for technology. And we were sharing some of our experiences because I go back to DOS 1.0, as you can imagine. And so I saw one of the very first IBM PCs 5150 that was ever released to the market, working at Computer Land way back when. And they were the first franchise in the US to sell IBM PCs with Microsoft OS on it. So I had some fun stories that Jim and I were talking about. I'm like, we got to tell some of these stories when we get up on stage. And he was so down to earth, but yet he so insightful. And I just love to have people like that. It's really great for the audience.
Yeah, no, that was great stuff. And just to give people a taste of what the events are like. So, I mean, you guys were talking about business and sort of technology related topics around security and managed services and so on. But there was also a sort of sales and marketing panel discussion with some folks that was really interesting. And you and our mutual friend, Carl Pawliczuk, the managed services consultant, did a session on LinkedIn. And just, I guess really it was more about social media marketing, but you really kind of focused on LinkedIn and all the interesting things you can do with that tool that I'm sure was useful to a lot of folks in the audience who know they should be doing more social media marketing, but don't really know how to get started. So you really do kind of cover the gamut in terms of the range of topics.
If you don't know how to get started, I can chime in with this because I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff. Here's how you get started in social media. You go to the sign up page and there's a screen and it says name, username, email address, go. That's it. It's actually not all that hard.
They lost me at
username. To share with you something that was fun for me. That was actually Carl Pawliczuk and myself. That was the first time that we actually co-presented a topic on stage together. And what's really funny is we did not rehearse at all. And we had a roughly a 55-minute spot, and literally on our last slide, we had like 10 seconds left. And it's like we couldn't have done that better if we tried.
Carl actually called that out from stage. It was like, high five. We got it exactly right.
and if you missed it, we did do, in essence, a podcast recording. I'll give a fun plug. Carl and I were really deeply engaged in this community. And between us, we made top 1% in our industry and top 1% of LinkedIn as a whole. So we've actually done pretty good on the platform, and then we kind of shared how we did that. It was a great discussion. And Rich, you pointed out really quick 2 awesome panels just to highlight. One panel was the sales strategies for 2019. We had on 4 larger MSPs talking about what they did wrong last year, what they're going to do better this year. How do they get their team prepped? Hindsight and insight, and it was really good. And the other panel to highlight was we talked about fine-tuning your service practice and optimizing it. And we had on 3 really good size MSPs one company, 300 employee MSP, Nexus Tech, and another 50, 60 user MSP out of Canada, Xbase, and our friend Eric Simpson that ran an MSP business and does coaching was on it, and they were fabulous too. So we do record a lot of those, really good content. And if you'll allow me really quick, that show was Q1, so it was about 10 days ago. And Q2 is about 3 months away, coming on April 18th. So getting excited for that one, 3 months away.
www.smbtechfest.com
/events.
And, while we're plugging shows, we should also point out that, March 6th is coming, and we have our show, March 6th, the very first 2019 ChannelPro SMB forum event in the Atlanta area is where we are in March. And somewhere in Atlanta. And Mr. Dave Seibert will be there. I will be there. Rich will be there. It is going to be a who's who of IT prowess, all the channel experts and pros. So make sure that if you're in the Atlanta area or anywhere nearby, plan on being there. It's a hell of a good show, and you'll learn a lot. And you'll have a good time. That's what we strive for anyway.
And that one, if you want to learn more about, you'll find the information at events.channelpronetwork.com.
Plain and simple. Or if you know the channelpronetwork.com website, there's a events link in the nav bar there too. You click that, it'll take you there. If you don't like typing as much, no problem. So, cool. Well, we've got a lot to cover this week. Actually, lots going on, and we'll start because one of the reasons why we wanted to have you, Dave, on last time is because you were actually at CES Live, and I know we want to talk a little bit about that. Rich, you're home this week, right?
Yes.
And I am home only because the doors to my house are frozen shut. So we actually can't get out. So I thought it would be appropriate if you see I'm wearing my tropical shirt today because it's the only thing that makes me think of warmth as it is literally negative 800 million degrees outside right now.
Matt, on a funny thing, the only thing that we see on the news right now is the fact that the Midwest and East Coast is basically in a thermal climate, and everything is frozen. Nobody can open any doors.
We're all stuck inside. There's no activity. It is a barren wasteland, I think, and like polar bears from the northern Arctic have descended into the area and are taking over. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, pretty fun, pretty crazy. So I'm stuck here in the negative 8 million degrees temperature. It is actually like last night it was negative. I think it hit like negative 36 or something like that in this area. Actual temperature, not wind chill.
Not wind chill. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
You throw the wind chills on there and it's like negative 70 degrees or something like that. It's absolutely insane temperatures. Turn you into a frozen popsicle in a matter of minutes.
So here in Seattle, the forecast high temperature for next Monday is 32 degrees. And that's like, oh my goodness, cold snap. Here comes winter. we
you got the perfect hat. You can wear your hat now because it's going to be cold enough.
That's right. That's right.
And I won't tell you that it just slightly dipped below 70 degrees here. So.
Oh, poor Dave.
Sunny California.
Set up a GoFundMe right now to ensure Dave's survival. Oh, and you know what, Rich? I was also thinking the other day too. We have not actually. You're home, so you have it. We have not seen the gift you got when you were here.
Let's see if I can do this.
Not the hat, but the other pet.
Let's see if I can do this without screwing up the camera position here. Can you see?
There he is.
The iguana up there. That's nice. Its home now.
So, Dave, if you don't know the story behind that, there was an episode long time ago where like Rich made me. He's like, oh yeah, we were talking about pets for some reason, and I'm like, well, do you have pets? And Rich's like, yeah, I have like iguanas, and they just kind of fend for themselves. And he was totally like kidding. He was joking the entire time, and when he was telling me this, he's like, yeah, I have a person coming in, they eat food, and he like originally he thought I knew he was kidding, but I actually thought he was being serious. So I kept over many shows asking him about like, how are the iguanas and how are they doing, and we'd make iguana jokes, and then he comes here and he's like, hey Matt, I got a secret to tell you. I don't actually have iguanas.
And I mean, to be clear, I was never trying to like punk him about. I just thought we're in on this joke. But then every now and then he would say something or do something, and I would think he does know it's a joke, right? And so yeah, I was out visiting him just a few weeks ago in December. Matt and his family, and we were having dinner, and he was telling his kids, Rich has iguanas at home, and I realized, okay, that settles it. He thinks I've got iguanas. I've got to come clean here. And now I do have an iguana.
And now and so I was online that night finding a giant stuffed iguana that I could give him. That I could give him, so that way, like, now he actually has an iguana. So now I don't feel so bad. Anyway, that's another fun thing. But I forgot we never actually showed it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it will not make you bust out the Rockford Ice Hogs toboggan cap, but you should wear that this week.
I was kind of teasing. This is as close as I get for a mascot. This is the Intel guy.
Yeah, the little Intel spaceman.
That remember this little guy.
Yeah, the clean suit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My kids always thought they were spaceman. But each of them have like 3 of those. I used to steal from shows. Those are pretty awesome. Anyway, Dave, so you were at CES and you saw all kinds of cool stuff. Take it away.
It's first of all, it's amazing how many people I talk to that have never been to CES at all. So in 20 seconds, I got to size up CES. So for me, it's year 18, and I love to go to CES, and it's more than just consumer electronics. I mean, I get that's what it is, the Consumer Electronics Show. You're talking about roughly 230,000 people go to this, almost 3 million square feet of exhibit space. So in our industry, it's probably if not the largest, one of the largest electronic shows. I used to love Comdex. If you're an ancient person that's been kicking around for a while, I actually have a fun record of 26 Comdex shows, and what a great event. But there is no equivalent of Comdex anymore. It got all distributed around, so the best you have to go to a big show is CES. And CES, yes, they got cars, they have audio, speakers, mobile devices, a lot of things that when you think of CES, you immediately think of. What you may not realize is that there was a lot of vendors that needed a quote home show to go to that are in our industry, and they didn't have one to go to, so they go to CES. So CES kind of divided themselves into areas, which they kind of call like Tech East, Tech West, Tech South. So CES takes up 11 properties in Vegas. It takes up the entire convention center. The Westgate that used to be the Hilton, they take up the entire, both layers of Sands, the Venetian, Aria, Wynn, Encore, you get the idea. It's massive in size, and I normally do the show for 2 days. So I walk about 80,000 steps in 2 days.
Yeah, your feet hurt when you come home from that trip. I haven't had to go to a CS in quite a while, but I used to have to cover that show every year, and you're absolutely right. You probably do walk a good 80,000, 100,000 steps when you're, and that's like not just in there, but it's also like getting around too, because you have to like walk. A lot of times you're like walking from the Sands to one of the other venues, and it's insane.
It is insane. And I'll highlight a few things. I mean, I'll say that sure, that there's the obvious things you hear on the news, 8K TVs, 5G, everything. If it's a mobile device, it has to have 5G or it doesn't matter. So 5G was a big thing. And anything wearable, anything health care and wearable, anything that talks to your smartphone. It's incredible where these apps are going and what's available. I mean, sure, that's what you hear about on the news, and all of that is definitely there. Matter of fact, on a fun note, one of the things I saw, I love drones. So people that kind of know my hobbies, I like radio controlled planes and helicopters and drones. And Bell, which is a pretty good sized manufacturer, had to me what appeared to be a large drone. And it really turned out to be an air taxi. So size wise, it's about the size of 3 to 4 vans, as in full vehicle vans. And Bell had it on the floor. You could probably put 50 people underneath it walking, and it was monstrous, and it was really cool to see. And it was not even a prototype yet. It was just a display model.
And radio controlled?
No. This one is a real fly, and they're going to use it for, in essence, a taxi with propellers, versus drive car. And but it was still at the show, and they were showing it in the automotive section. And so some fascinating technologies to see. And you go, okay, that's all great. What's that have to do with us? So, the likes of Belkin was at the show. They had a monstrous, 5,000 square foot booth. So Belkin takes up a good amount of space. QNAP was there, and QNAP that makes NAS devices released a whole series of product line. One of they have 10 gig ports on them. They have 8 bays. They have SSD for high speed for doing virtualization. They have a whole new platform for digital media for business that does AI, that does facial recognition, item recognition, and things and geography. So it will actually analyze your software and sort them based on the geography of monuments or things. The AI is really powerful. And also QNAP had an IoT, brand new OS that they've come out with that allows you to deploy, develop, test, and manage IoT devices. So there was a lot of things that our own industry can really use. Intel was there. They announced their new processors. AMD announced some processors to rival Intel processors. So a lot of wins, but a lot of things, technology that we can deploy to our clients and manage for our clients are at CES because they don't have a better home to go to. And networking devices to monitor and manage networks. A lot of those things you'll see at CES, despite the title Consumer Electronics Show.
Well, an interesting anecdote. Several years ago, the CTA, the Consumer Technology Association, which owns and operates CES, actually officially announced that CES no longer stands for Consumer Electronics Show. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No.
People continue to refer to it as the Consumer Electronics Show, but it is actually it actually now stands for nothing.
It's just CES.
It's just CES, and they did that because of exactly the kind of things that you're saying. Is that over the years it has evolved far beyond consumer electronics, and is the default expo for lots of different categories of products that are commercial based, vertical based, and have nothing to do with consumers. So right. That's why they dropped that. And and this year I think it was probably one of the best years where that's been highly evident, given the severe amount of healthcare products that you said were shown. I was trying to follow a lot of the press releases, and obviously not being there in person, I wasn't able to see everything.
Right.
But it's also the IoT show, from what I was gathering.
IoT was massive, and
yeah.
And if somebody says, "Well, I can't walk that much," or that's too much territory, they do a really good job of categorizing. So when I'll highlight 2 areas that are just priceless. So one area is IoT. So anyone who's IoT based, it's kind of like this is the section in the hall for you. And when they say section, they don't mean 50 foot by 50 foot.
No.
They mean 1,000 foot by 1,000 foot. And everybody who's IoT focused, they all come to that. All their booths are in that space. So if your interest when you go to CES is IoT and you want to learn more about it, you can literally plant yourself for half a day and inside an area of 300 vendors and find out everything IoT you could ever imagine. And I'll share one other one that is one of my favorite spots, and that's Eureka Park. So if you've never seen Eureka Park, it's always in the first level of the sands. A lot of people don't know it exists, but it is one of the busiest places in all of CES. And I always take photos every year. Basically, there is 1,000 startup companies. Startup means less than 2 years. So you can imagine that's a lot of coverage there. But 1,000 companies with all of them having an 8x8 booth. So it's all very small. And literally, it is shoulder to shoulder, aisle by aisle. I mean, there's over, I would say, 75 aisles of Eureka Park. And you can't walk very fast because it's that condensed. And you see incredible technologies. And that's where I find some of the newer items that are breakthroughs that we can deploy with our clients. They've been in business for 8-9 months. And and it's actually quite innovative, and that's why people go to Eureka Park. And it's U.S., it's international, it's all put together. But if you check out CES, you have to go check out Eureka Park.
Yeah, when most of the time when you talk about CES, most people don't think 8x8 booths, because the other fun part about CES is the absolutely insane booth demonstration areas that a lot of the larger companies put together, like LG. Samsung and LG and Microsoft. Although no, actually Microsoft hasn't been at CES in a very, very long time. I don't know. But Intel usually has I always remember they would have some gigantic thing that they would
Sony.
do. Yeah, Sony, and they're just amazing.
They're skyscrapers inside the convention center. I kid you not, they're like small cities. Matter of fact, they build sometimes 20-foot walls around the outer perimeter of like the Sony booth, and you literally have to go into their city, and everything happens inside because they want to keep you in there. And it's amazing what they bring to the show, what they set up. There was an agricultural company at the show, and they had a piece of machinery that actually does GPS with agricultural, and the vehicle that is working the farm, I kid you not, I want to say it was at least 20 foot tall and at least 20 foot by 30 foot. I mean, it was like a triple the size of a garbage truck, like that would service a residential neighborhood. And it's like, how did they even get that thing in here? And
it's mind-boggling to think about. And I can only imagine how much money some of these companies spend to put those things together.
Well, you mentioned like LG, Sony, Panasonic. When they bring large 80, 100-inch TVs, they don't bring one or two, they bring 50 or 60. So inside their booth is a wall of 60 and 70 80-inch TVs all tied together. It's just monstrous, like a small city.
Yeah, good times. So if you were going to say like the top 3 things you saw while you were there, what would you say was the coolest stuff? Top 3.
Well, the coolest stuff, hands down, was vehicle stuff. Self-driving vehicles is the big push, and everybody's showing off their stuff. It's amazing how many vehicles now have no knobs or controls. You just get in, it's actually kind of bland, but there's a dashboard that looks like custom-made display panels that run all the way across. and everybody, of course, wants to climb in and look at them. And that was everything futuristic, but futuristic in CES world, you're talking 2 years away. So that was fascinating. They had a vehicle that was a sled, meaning imagine a roller skate with 4 wheels, and it's electric. So it's just a flat sled, and you actually drop car shells on top of it. So if you want a sports car for the weekend, you drop on the sports shell onto the sled. And if you need a truck for your work during the weekday, you lift and lower a new shell. So, I mean, that was the exciting stuff, right? They had motorcycles that, believe it or not, were to show how well their technology is. They had self-driving motorcycles. Not that all of us are going to race out and buy those, but they're demonstrating how sophisticated their technologies are. And BlackBerry made some news, of course, because they acquired Cylance. And you go, what's that have to do with CES? BlackBerry makes the operating systems that go inside to manage cars, self-driving cars. And Cylance has that artificial intelligence on the security that they've embedded in it, and that was a big talk at the show too. And then when it comes back to to all of us, no doubt, Belkin had a strong presence. QNAP that makes network attached storage devices had a strong presence, and so there's quite a few things. Laptops. You could always see the latest of what was available. So a lot of those would come home that people would find relevant. Also, if you're in the business of deploying conference rooms, i.e. projectors, audio systems, speaker systems, all of that is at the show too, so that you can help clients out with modernizing their conference rooms, and or just saving a client that has remote offices. And instead of everybody jumping on an airplane and flying to have a meeting to enable them to have web conference calls, you'd find all of that there too. So a lot of things that hit home.
Yeah, very cool. I did a write-up for the next issue, which I was late on, which as all of our listeners know, anytime I commit to doing something for the magazine, I'm usually always late in getting it in. And Rich, did I not disappoint this time?
Yeah. Well, how do I put this? By Matt Whitlock standards, you did an outstanding job of getting that piece in on time.
It was only 2 days late, I think. So not too bad.
Not at all.
Not too bad. But so I did a little write up about CES. I made a couple of interesting predictions. You talked about conference rooms, Dave, and one of the things that I saw come out of CES that I thought was really interesting was LG's rollable display. It's basically there's I think of like a box, like a stand that's like a square rectangle, and the TV rolls into it and then comes back up and like unrolls and becomes a TV. So it kind of disappears when not in use. Think like a projector screen, basically, that you would pull down and then put up. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is the beginning of the end of the projector market. Is one of the ways that I looked at it. Now, I don't. And when I say the beginning of the end, will projectors continue to be made and built? And of course they will. I mean,
sure they will.
When you need to do 1,000-foot cinema screen, I mean, I don't know if rollable LED is or micro LED was one of the cool things that Samsung showed off, which ultimately will be rollable. I don't know if we're to that point yet, but if you're going to put a 100-inch screen in a conference room in 10 years, I don't think you're putting a projector and a screen in. I think just the screen that rolls up and down is the screen, is the display itself.
Yeah, totally. And not only that, but it's so easy. I mean, let's put it this way. When technology gets to the point that you walk into a Costco and pick it off the shelf and walk out with it, it's a commodity item, and it's so easy to mount on the wall because they're so light now. And there's not a reason for that, quote, legacy old school projector anymore. I think the clarity is much higher with the TV. And once again, you can walk out the same day, from a Costco with an 80-inch TV for your conference room. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, and for the rollable versions, I mean, they'll just be displays that roll right up into a little box on the ceiling and roll down, and there's no other part to it. And what do I say? Beginning and the end, is that going to happen tomorrow? No. Projectors will be with us probably still for a very long time, but it's the beginning of that market phasing out as displays become that thick and stick on a wall and roll up and down and are durable enough to do that and bright enough. So it's coming. So I thought that was an interesting one that came out of the show. I talk about a couple other things. I talk a lot about IoT. I know 5G was the talk of CES. I did not see really a lot of actual 5G hardware, if any.
I didn't either. It was really more the talk, meaning everybody had a banner up that said they support 5G. It's like, if you didn't support 5G, why are you here? So,
it's like saying I support oxygen, of course. Like, we all will support 5G. And it was talked about in every speech. I listened to a whole bunch of different panels and press conferences, and yes, it will be huge. But I was just surprised on how on board and how present it was without actually being there.
You know what it reminded me a lot of? Do you remember way back in I hate to say the Wi-Fi days, but when Wi-Fi was being ratified, so you'd have like 802.11n, and do you remember the days of pre-n?
So, yeah, 802.11b, 802.11g.
Yes. So, and you would go to the shows, and everybody would be talking about. Nobody wanted to feel like portrayed that they were behind. So before N even got ratified, you go to a show and everybody be talking about, we have pre-N. And it's like, what the heck is pre-N? And is it compatible with anything? And so it reminds me of that with 5G. Nobody wants to be thought of not having 5G. Nobody wanted to be thought of not having wireless N. So everybody's racing to update their marketing material. But when the rubber meets the road, as they say, there wasn't really that much that mattered that you quote held in your hand and bought today that leveraged 5G the same way all the marketing hype was.
Yeah, well, and even 5G infrastructure still doesn't really exist. And I was very surprised to see how little infrastructure products were shown. There's a lot of talk. I was expecting Qualcomm and a whole bunch of other companies to be showing off, some of the products that will be building out 5G networks. But I didn't. Right. I mean, I wasn't there. It's not like that stuff gets heavy press. But
there's another show really quick that I go to that those kind of products are there instead, and it's called Mobility. So it's like Mobility 2017, Mobility 2018. You get the idea. And it'll be Mobility 2019. And when you go to those shows, you'll find towers, like towers with gear mounted on them and other things that are mobile. And then you'll find those kind of technologies at those kind of shows.
That's true. CES may not be the right show for a lot of that kind of infrastructure stuff. And there's a lot of other mobile shows too that like the one they do in Barcelona. The name is escaping me at the moment. But yeah, there's a bunch of more niche shows, I think, for that kind of thing. So very interesting, very cool. Rich, you read the piece. We'll talk about it more when the issue hits. But is there anything you want to mention or talk about?
No, I mean, you guys kind of hit on the key. We spoke about this actually, Dave, on the podcast recently, which is just that we've been in a, it's been possible for us to cover that event from afar to the extent that we cover it in the past. And next year we will have somebody there, if not more than one person, because it's a business show too, and it's an IoT show, and that's a big focus for us. So it'll be interesting to see ChannelPro's take on CES in 2020.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more coverage on it than we normally do. That is for sure. I'm going to go probably start looking for good shoes because I'm sure I'm going to be roped into going.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 pairs of socks.
2 pairs of socks, yeah. I'll have to do my CES survival tips. I wrote a thing a long time ago about CES survival tips. I was a see if I still have. I don't even know if I have the rights to that one, but maybe I'll rewrite something like that because it's. I learned a lot of interesting things back in the day on how to survive that show. Cool. Well, thanks, Dave, for talking about CES. We got a whole bunch of other news stories to talk about, and we're already a good chunk way into this particular show. So, Rich, why don't we switch gears and talk about something that I know our audience loves, which is margin.
Margin and BDR, right? I mean, these are two things that most of our audience can relate to. So yeah, first news story of the week here that we're diving into, it involves Kaseya, and we've been talking about them a lot on the show recently, it seems. They just this week introduced a new sort of sales compensation model for their Unitrends BDR product line. Now, if you are an MSP and you're selling Unitrends or any other BDR product, a lot of this won't necessarily resonate immediately with you, but there are tons and tons of VARs out there still who are really not doing little to no managed services. And this new program that Kaseya is calling the Extra program is really targeted at those folks. So it does two things that are notable. So first of all, Kaseya has significantly increased the upfront commission that you're going to get on a Unitrends solution sale. So it depends a little bit on where you are in their program and what kind of margin you were qualified for before, but you will be getting up to 75% more, right away after a deal closes on a Unitrends transaction. But the other thing that's significant about this is from that point forward, every time that customer activates another component of Kaseya's IT Complete platform, the VAR who made that initial Unitrends sale are going to collect a percentage of the subscription revenue that Kaseya is getting on that product. So most Unitrends VARs sell to mid-sized businesses and above. These are typically businesses with their own IT department. Those IT departments might be doing a little bit of managed services work with an MSP, but for the most part, they prefer to kind of handle things in-house. So they're actually customers for these Kaseya products like the RMM tool and the PSA tool, compliance and auditing tools that Kaseya acquired along with rapid fire tools, cloud-to-cloud backup that they acquired along with spanning. On average, according to Kaseya's data, if you sell Unitrends into one of these mid-sized businesses that has its own IT department, over the course of the next few years, that customer will purchase 2 to 3, if not more, additional Kaseya products. And they'll generally sell those products to themselves, essentially. Kaseya will be communicating with them about other things that you can now add on to your Unitrends product. And these customers will go out and start activating different components. If you are the VAR who sold Unitrends into that account, every time that customer goes off and purchases another Kaseya product, you're going to start collecting margin on that. And the money is just coming to you on a recurring basis, and it's good for the lifetime, basically, of the customer relationship. So in a lot of cases, you don't really have to do anything to make that money, and you never stop receiving it. So, if you're somebody who is new to the managed services kind of model, somebody who is new to recurring revenue, somebody who understands that from a mergers and acquisitions standpoint and an exit strategy standpoint, the more recurring revenue you're earning, the more valuable and attractive your business is going to be. This is kind of an interesting way to take your first step into that MSP kind of world.
So what do you think, Dave? You think they're onto something there?
I'll absolutely, and I'll take this on a higher road, so to speak, and that is Kaseya is with their M&As that have been happening. They're really pulling together some incredible technology platforms, and their CEO Fred Vokola, I think that's how you say that. Yeah, looks right, Vokola.
I think he said, and it took me a long time to learn this, but I'm pretty sure he pronounces it Vokola.
Okay. Well, I give him a lot of credit because Unitrends is an awesome company. Rapid Fire is an awesome company. And pulling those together along with the other acquisitions and bringing those solutions to partners and then trying to unify the various plans, the commission plans, structure plans, and offerings, not a small feat. And so I kind of look at it at a higher level, that I see this consolidation, these technologies pulling together, and I see it making a richer platform that we can deliver out to clients. So I think that the Unitrends MSP commission is sweet, but I kind of look at it at a higher level, that pulling these technologies together, pulling the different commissions and cross platform, so that we can offer more solutions to clients. I kind of look at it at a higher level of what they're doing, and it's pretty exciting.
And, we talked about this a little bit on the last episode of the podcast. They are not done building out that platform. Just within the last couple of weeks, Fred told me there are at least 3 more acquisitions in the works, one of which will involve a security and compliance company. One will involve some kind of a cloud management kind of company. And then the third will be somewhere in the realm of line of business software for MSPs. So it won't be an RMM or a PSA product, but that kind of a thing. That's something that you as an MSP use to run your business internally. And that's just what they're kind of willing to talk about now. But yeah, there are more acquisitions coming. They're going to be expanding out the IT Complete platform even further.
On a fast, funny note, I was at another event not too long ago and talking to a few MSPs, and their statement was MSPs are dead. That market, it's done, it's over, and they're looking to figure out what's next. And I laughed and I said, MSP is far from dead. Matter of fact, just take a look around you at these VC private equity firms and the money they're putting into the MSP market, the reoccurring revenue market, and it's just starting to take off. It really is. So there's a lot of life in MSP.
I'm totally and completely with you on that. And I mean, just a few add-ons to that point. So first of all, about a year plus ago, I remember interviewing Austin McCord, who was still CEO of Datto at that time. And he firmly believes, and he's not the only one, that the reason that private equity money is getting into managed services is because there are a lot of people who believe this. But he certainly passionately believes that it is the destiny of every company with up to 1,000 employees in the U.S., if not the world, to have some kind of relationship with an MSP. And if that is the future you see ahead for managed services, then you're absolutely right. We have really only kind of recently gotten started. And the other little thing I'll say, and here's a little kind of hint of something that we'll be talking about weeks from now on the podcast. Our cover story for the March issue of ChannelPro is about our annual State of the Channel survey. So once a year, we go out to readers and ask for all sorts of data about market conditions and how your business is going and so on. And this will be the 4th time that we've done that. And there's a question in there at the beginning of the survey where we ask people, which of these things, we provide a list of different kinds of services, which of these do you offer? And it's not like we get an absolutely perfect cross-section of channel pros in our, the response base to that survey, but it's a pretty representative sample. And this will be the first year ever that more people have said we offer managed services than say we offer break fix.
Right.
And which will surprise a lot of people, right? Because like you were saying, basically, managed services, it's over, it's done. 10 years ago, how long have we been talking about this? It's a mature market, but the reality is there's huge upside ahead and lots of channel pros out there who are, haven't gotten started yet or are just getting started.
Right. I totally agree. And, it's ironic because break fix isn't totally dead either, believe it or not. And there's actually, I have a partner in one of my peer groups that does about $7 million, $7.5 million a year in break fix / project work.
Wow.
And he's totally thrilled and happy with that model. So while I do understand the reoccurring MSP model, I'm a firm believer in it. All I'm saying is that professional services, block time, project, those things are still thriving. Don't let them go.
I think probably the best news that came out of this for a lot of MSPs who are listening and are watching is that they can hold, put their fingers right here on their wrists and they are not dead.
Right.
That would make me feel a lot better knowing that I wasn't dead. Anyway, all right. Good. No, good stuff. But speaking of, you know what else isn't dead, Rich?
What's that?
Entry-level SMB printer families.
Yeah, you know
those are not dead. Those are alive.
And the print market in general, you know, it's flat, but you know, there's still the tens of billions of dollars being spent on printers. There's plenty of opportunity for ChannelPro readers and ChannelPro weekly listeners to be making money on print, and particularly in the SMB space, which is why Lexmark, our next story here, has really been making a push in the last year into SMB. Historically, they've been much stronger in the sort of mid-market and above, especially in the enterprise kind of a space. But a year ago, January 2018, they hired a new channel chief, familiar name to you and me, Matt, and to anyone who has partnered in recent years with Lenovo. Sammy Kinlaw, formerly of Lenovo, is now Lexmark's channel chief. And you don't just hire someone like Sammy because he knows his way around and you know, the partners like him and so on. You hire yourself a Sammy Kinlaw when you know that you need, in a serious way, to build an SMB channel. And he knows at this point in his career exactly how to do that. And that's really what he's doing right now. Now, in 2018, he will be the first to tell you he got kind of lucky, because Lexmark was right on the verge, like about 6 months away when he joined the company, from this major release of new products that were right for the SMB space. Something like 92% of the Lexmark product line got turned over in 2018. And so it was perfect timing for Sammy to not only create programs through distribution and hire all kinds of account managers and boost incentives and do all the things that channel chiefs kind of know to do when they're recruiting and going deeper with existing partners. But they really had something to talk to the partners about, and for the partners to talk to the end users about, with this whole new line of products that Lexmark attached a name to, sort of a brand to. They're calling the SMB specific additions to their product line the Go line. And so the hope is that going forward, when you hear Go line from Lexmark, you know, if you're an SMB reseller, this is for you. We've got extra margin built into the business model there. The products are going to be spec'd right for your customers. So this week, Lexmark introduced the newest additions to the Go line. They are entry-level SMB printers. They're both monochrome, one's single function, one's multifunction. The single function one, I think, has an MSRP of $159.99. The MSRP is $229.99. These are not super expensive products. But you know, they have all the sort of design considerations that an SMB is looking for in terms of compact form factor and speed and reliability and so on. They really do. They are designed to bring Lexmark into a segment of the SMB space that they haven't really been selling to before. So for a Lexmark partner, this opens up a whole new market for you to you know, to bring some products to and talk to. And it's just another piece in this this ongoing campaign by Sammy Kinlaw to get turn Lexmark into a big name in SMB print, in addition to enterprise.
So where would you say that Lexmark typically puts their focus, if not SMB? I seem to, off the top of my head, I can recall Lexmark printers that probably would have been good for SMB. So were they more enterprise focused, consumer focused? Where would you say that they were playing?
They were much more at the upper end of the spectrum, at the enterprise. So you're right. I mean, it's not like Lexmark didn't have products that were appropriate for SMB. But if you looked at where they spent their marketing dollars, where their sales force was, like they did a lot of their sales direct to big businesses. That's how they were sort of set up to operate. And you know, there was this giant, largely untapped SMB opportunity in front of them, and the only way to get at it is to build a channel, and so that's what they've started doing now.
Interesting. So, Dave, when you think SMB print, what would you normally? Would you consider something like this from Lexmark? You think this is the right kind of product to start with?
I found that the entry-level SMB printers interesting for a couple of reasons. I use the word interesting kind of, here's why. That market has really been served and rather saturated for a lot of years already with some other manufacturers that focus on SMB. And therefore, I don't think that there was something that was lacking. Matter of fact, I think that the market's been served quite well. However, on the flip side, if I'm a Lexmark solution provider or Lexmark distributor, I did have a bit of a hole in my offering if I wanted to offer Lexmark. So I understand why they did it, because they expanded the product family. And I think that was good for anyone that focused on Lexmark, hands down. But
yeah,
for the industry as a whole, we have some pretty good solutions out there. So I don't think there was a hole that was missing, as much as it made good sense for Lexmark not to miss out on that kind of business and provide it to their partners.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good observation. I think, I mean, certainly when I was interviewing Sammy about this, I mean, he believes, well, we've got these great products now that give new channel recruits something to look at, a reason to do business with us. But really, probably the bigger near-term opportunity is to take those partners already doing business with them and open up this whole new market segment for them to sell into. And I
totally agree.
Yeah, they'll get some momentum.
Do you think this is the right product though? I only because we've been talking a lot about printers lately, and I've been enamored by like the Epson EcoTanks, and like they have some SMB lines now too, which lets you do color like really, really cheap. And here's just two black and white monochrome laser printers in a day where color is kind of coming back in business. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think this is gonna get the attention that they want?
Let's put it this way. I mean, if we throw out some names super fast, Epson, Brother, HP, they've been servicing this SMB space for a long time, and they have some competitive product in that space. So it's not that the space has been unserviced. That's not the case. And also, I think most solution providers, they don't sell a single brand anyway. Because not one size fits all. So I think that a lot of solution providers are brands. But then again, if you're a Lexmark, if that's a good focus for you, and that's who you use, well, then you did have a void, because they didn't have that entry level SMB. And for all of those partners, it totally makes sense. So it is a little bit of that, teeter-totter scenario where there wasn't a hole in the market, but on the other hand, if you were really a Lexmark provider, this was a good answer so that you could be competitive and continue with that brand and that label.
Fair enough. It's good to see brands pushing forward and looking for new opportunities and even simplicity, just like Intel, right, Rich?
That's right. Another expert segue.
Only the best for our awesome ChannelPro weekly listeners and viewers.
So what Matt is alluding to here is a story I posted on the ChannelProNetwork.com site on Monday. Basically, I had an opportunity recently to catch up with and talk about pronouncing names right. I hope I get this right, but Todd Garrigas, who is a senior executive in the partner organization at Intel, and it's been about 7 months since I spoke with him, and had an opportunity to kind of catch up on what is new with Intel and what they're kind of looking forward to in 2019. Yeah, so I should say, I spoke with Todd. I mean, it was probably 12 hours after Intel released its latest quarterly numbers, and it's like while we were talking, the stock price was probably plummeting because some of those numbers didn't reach analyst expectations. But you actually look at the numbers themselves, and they're growing like 7 to 9% in legacy businesses. The client and data center stuff, they're growing. I think it's 9% in IoT. It's actually a pretty healthy company, especially for a company that size. And that was, not surprisingly, that was kind of the theme that Todd was looking to emphasize in the conversation, which is just that actually things are going pretty well, and we're really looking forward to 2019. They've got the whole 9th gen processor family coming. They've got some of the products that they were showcasing at CES, the Ice Lake product family, some new Xeon Scalables coming up later this year. Interesting if you kind of read the body language a little bit on Optane, which is this kind of next generation storage and memory technology that Intel has come out with recently. The vibe that I got talking about that with him was that it has not been a giant seller for them yet, but that they're starting to get some momentum, so that they have high hopes for Optane in 2019. And then it was very interesting talking with him. I personally was completely unfamiliar with how much they've done in IoT. Now, I was familiar, obviously, with some of the hardware and the processors and so on, but they actually have quite a robust library of these prepackaged solutions that they've created in IoT. And that is the thing that newcomers to IoT are really kind of looking for right now, is that easy step into the market, something that's been kind of pre-assembled and validated for me. And Intel does a whole lot more of that than I realized until this week. And they are actively in the process of augmenting that library. It's going to be another focus area for them this year. And then you were alluding to the simplicity or simplification. The other big thing they did last year was unify a whole bunch of previously separate partner programs. So they have this one big partner program now, one big partner event that they do that they call Partner Connect. And it's going to be another point of emphasis for them in 2019 to make doing business with Intel easier for partners by breaking down the distinctions and barriers between all of these different programs that used to run in silos, essentially, inside the company.
Very cool. Yeah, it's good. It's good to see that that Optane still has a bright future ahead of it. It's really cool stuff, and it's made its way into a lot of different products. But I think the end goal of that is maybe, I don't know, Dave, what's the end goal of Optane? Just completely replacing RAM and storage with it, or what do you think?
As always, it's all about speed and capacity, right? And also battery. Can't forget battery. So speed, capacity, battery life. I mean, those are the big three. And when every time we hear about a new processor that comes out, you always hear the very first thing is how much faster it is. The second thing you hear, of course, is how many cores and threads does it have, because everybody's into virtualization. And then, of course, the third thing you hear is how much less power consumption it uses. And when I was reading about that Intel announcements, there was a couple things that really caught my eye. Intel's massive, meaning they have so many divisions and areas and lines of business, but they had a good spread of 8 to 21% growth based on what area of Intel you were talking about. And a lot of people think, oh, Intel, nobody buys a server anymore, and it's all cloud. But Intel's holding its own between its processor line and its the CPUs. It's not really slowing down that much. Not to the degree that people are trying to paint a picture. And so they're still growing quite well. The speed, the die set size is still getting smaller, which lowers the power consumption as well. There's a lot of life there, as they say. Kind of like MSP, it's not dead yet.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just kind of going back just to those quarterly numbers that had some people freaked out for a little while. It's like, again, for a company that big that's dealing with headwinds in China, that until hours ago, didn't really have an official full-time CEO, that's dealing with supply chain issues that have been plaguing everybody in the hardware space and given all those issues, actually, for 7 to 9% growth in core businesses, and like you said, on an annual basis, 20% in some areas, it looks kind of good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and one more thing that you brought up, the IoT. And IoT is it's such an emerging. I mean, it's growing massive in our industry, but it's still emerging at the same time. It's like one of these phenomenons where it's still new, but yet it's massively growing. And they came out with this IoT ready kits. And if you haven't looked into those, you really should. You could, probably Google the IoT RFP ready kits. That's kind of like their official name. And anyone, IoTs, as we've talked in prior SMB forums, live forums, we've talked about IoT before. IoT is in all of our client networks, whether we acknowledge it, like it, or don't like it. And the more that we learn the impact of IoT, the better we're going to be able to manage the networks and take care of our clients. So everybody should take a little peek at the IoT Ready Kits and understand it just a little bit better, because it's still new technology to a lot of us.
So, and I'll say there are actually two different sort of collections of these kits. There are the RFP Ready kits, and then the separate set of kits called Market Ready Solutions. And to be totally honest, I don't quite understand the distinction between one set versus the other. But it sounds like you've at least done some research into some of this stuff. I don't know if you've actually played around with it.
I haven't played around with it yet. I mean, there's no doubt played around with IoT as a whole, because I don't think we have a single client in my MSP business side of the house that has no IoT device, meaning they all have something. And anything that we can all do to understand the implication of what IoT is doing to our networks, the better off we're going to be. So I don't know the difference between those two kits either. If I had to take a guess, I would say that the RFP is more a development platform, and the Market Ready is more a deployment platform, meaning one is for developers and the other is I won't say turnkey, but closer to the actual deployment platforms.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't know either of these libraries existed, and was sort of interested to learn how big they are. I have not played around with any of this stuff either, and Intel is not the only company, not even the only big company out there that's offering these kinds of pre-assembled kits. So it's hard for me to say how the Intel technologies stack up against something that you could get from an Avnet or a Tech Data or an Ingram Micro, and better, worse, the same, and so on. But I didn't know they were doing that at all. So
right, and I was peeking really fast out on the site for the Ready Kits, and it looks like they have about 20 playbooks that you can download that better explain what each. So it's not one Ready Kit; it's like a miniature library.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of playbooks that you can download that kind of based on what your interest is. Like anyone who does security cameras, that's a good example. So a lot of our clients have security camera systems. I mean, we have one client with a warehouse with about 29 high definition security cameras. And, that would still fall under the IoT side of the house. And I just happened to see here that smart camera IoT devices is one of the playbooks. So you kind of, I think, look at the vertical that might be of interest to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have a fancy segue this time, Rich. Thanks for putting all the pressure on. But there is another story that we're going to talk about, and that's another sales-related story. HP's got some sales incentives. What's going on with HP?
Yeah, this story just broke today, actually. So, for those of you not aware of it, HP is in the displays and accessories business too. It's we all know, and I've had plenty of good things to say on this podcast about their PCs and laptops and workstations and so on. But they actually sell lots of displays and accessories for those devices as well. And starting tomorrow, so as we are recording now, it's the last day of January. Starting February 1st, they are introducing a new sales incentive program that will basically pay you double the commission that they were offering before on display and accessory sales. And obviously, they're trying to do a number of different things here. So first off, they are seeing a lot of growth in what they internally call DNA. And then a number of different things kind of driving that. You've got the whole mobile workforce kind of trend, and people who do some of their work at the office and some of their work at home, and they need displays and accessories in both of those places. So that's driving increased DNA sales. You've got the whole thing around everybody wanting, 2 or more displays wherever it is that they work. That's driving sales as well. So there's growth in that market. There's opportunity in that market, and HP wants to get in on it, and they want their partners to get in on it. So they're offering these increased incentives. And then the other thing, is there are, I'm sure, lots of occasions where an HP partner will sell a desktop or a notebook or a workstation to one of their customers, a device from HP, and then ship that along with a ViewSonic display or a Logitech keyboard or mouse or something like that. So, obviously, not surprisingly, HP is going to try to capture as much of that business as they can by rewarding the channel with these greater sales incentives. So, and it just quickly, I'll note, it's a measure of how seriously they're taking this. HP generally only rolls out these kinds of new additions to its Partner First partner program twice a year. November 1st and May 1st. They just sort of consolidate these changes and put them all out there at once. That they would do something like this on February 1st is by their own admission, kind of a departure from the norm, and sort of indicates to you that from their perspective, this is sort of a time-sensitive opportunity.
It's interesting, Rich, that it seems like all of these big computer companies, because we talked about this I think just last week with Lenovo, right? Because they were right. saying that they were starting to really focus on the display market in particular and do more to bring up their attach rates with their own branded monitors. And then here's HP kind of doing the same thing. And it's like, did these guys just finally realize that like people buy lots of monitors? Like what is going on here?
It is interesting, isn't it? I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're exactly right. There's a lot of that going on. And one of the things I spoke about with the folks from HP, which is a familiar theme to us, of course, and to others, is just this idea that there is quite often a lot of money left on the table in these hardware deals around accessories in particular. I mean, people need displays. Displays tend to get built into these deals, but all the other stuff, the docking stations and so on, sometimes get overlooked. And so that's kind of an opportunity that, HP wants to take advantage of and get its partners paying more attention to by compensating them more. But it is interesting that displays in particular have the computer makers' attention right now in that way.
Well, it's like Dell figured this out 10 years ago.
Right.
Like they've always been one of the computer makers really focused on making and marketing and selling monitors as well as computers. And then it's like every other company just ceded to monitor companies, display companies like Samsung and ViewSonic and, Asus and all those. It's just, but you were talking about deals left, money left on the table with accessories. Not if you listen to this podcast, because I have been telling people over and over again on the show and in the magazine, when I actually have time to write something for it, there is money in accessories, lots of it. Don't leave money on the table. Sell accessories.
It makes perfect sense that HP is doing this. There's a study out there, human resource study, that when you add a second monitor to an existing computer, that the user's productivity goes up about 28%. And let me tell you, salaries is the highest expense, mostly, that a company bears. And if you can take the people on your staff and increase their productivity, even if you only increase it by 20% by spending $150, give or take, what a heck of a deal. And there's an old adage also, the commissions, the spiffs, we all love them. No one's going to turn them away. But there's an old adage, and that is commissions drives behavior. So in other words, you want to drive behavior for people to sell your accessories, give them some commission, give them some spiffs. And I'll have to tease and say that myself here on this podcast, I have a laptop and I have three 26-inch monitors in portrait mode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I don't want to use the term spoiled. I like to use the term productive. But the productivity it gives you when you have more surface space is amazing. So when I go into a business and the executive, the leadership team, the people that you're paying a lot of salary to, are sitting there working on a 14-inch laptop display.
And that's me, by the way.
So
yeah, but you don't count, Rich. You're on the road so much. You're rarely home. You have to work from a.
First thing I want to do is I want to show them a photo of what a productive worker looks like that has, one or two external displays in the surface space and the way that they work. So to me, for HP to do this, it's low hanging fruit. It's a great opportunity.
I don't want to focus entirely on displays. I think I find it shocking that these companies are just now realizing that people need displays to work with computers. Even if they have a display built in, a lot of people still want lots of screens. Screens are good. If you have 3, I have 2. I would like to have 7 if possible. But
Windows natively supports up to 9. So
you can do and with advanced graphics cards like AMD with their like Infinity technology, you can put a million screens on these things these days. But I don't want to focus just on displays. Accessories is another big one that I find absolutely shocking, and hopefully companies like HP and Lenovo can wake up a little bit and start making better accessories. And here's what I mean by that. HP sells you a computer, and they put usually if it's like a desktop, they put a mouse in it and a keyboard. And I don't know what the detach rate. I'm going to make up that term. What's the detach rate for people who open up the HP computer box and throw that mouse away because it sucks?
I love that term, by the way. We've just invented a new metric.
But I don't know how many. But they're usually terrible. Why don't they make better accessories and go against companies like Logitech and Microsoft and Razer and a lot of the companies that focus on making high quality input peripherals, and not just, and mice is a big one. Keyboards is another big one. How many people pull this piece of crap out of the box with it, and it's like the worst keyboard in the world, and you go and you buy one from somebody else. It'd be nice if there was some variety there. And then of course there's docks, and how many accessories do you need for a computer? Lots.
And not to shift us back to the display thing, but if I remember right, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Lenovo is outsourcing some of their display products, right? It's not like they're making this massive investment in that new product line. They've found a sort of cost-effective way. So presumably you could kind of do that with the accessories as well.
I would think so. What Lenovo, I don't know how much they're outsourcing entirely. I think what Lenovo's doing is a more focused approach on having a better variety and better quality. Of course, they don't make LCD panels, so they have to rely on the supply chain for that. But there could be partnership deals for some of these companies if they don't want to do it. Like, why not partner with Logitech or whatever and have them build a nice line of accessories for you? Logitech still wins, whether they buy theirs or yours. But I don't know. It seems like this is something that they would have thought of years and years and years ago. You know what I mean?
And speaking of disposable attachments, I think we all have stuff laying around. You're talking, and I just reached to the right of me. I don't know if you can really see this or not, but it's a USB fan on a gooseneck, right? But no,
that one has the little LED strip. So does it make like a pattern when you turn it on?
To say, but no, it's not just a fan. It comes with software, and it actually has an LED strip. And you can program it for things to say. And now as you stay cool, you can read fun words as you do it.
You know,
It's
Dave,
amazing the
you don't
stuff
need a
that they
fan
do.
to stay cool because you're a pretty cool guy.
That's just amazing, the stuff that we have laying around, all of us.
Yeah, we've done a whole bunch of stories on and roundups on like crazy USB peripherals. It's amazing how many different weird, wacky ones there are. Fans and coffee warmers and there's like plug-in USB socks to keep your feet warm. I'm sure if it exists, there's a USB variant that plugs in. So anyway, yeah, no, cool. Great story. I really hope HP not only doubles down on providing incentives, but also doubles down on providing better accessories. So what is that, Dave?
Like whatever that is.
And this is a USB rocket launcher. So it does spin around, fully controlled. It does have little missiles that you can shoot, and it's auto loaded. Hey, just saying, USB.
Is there an app for that? Do you control that?
You control it through an app.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, resellers, go into any office with seas of cubicles, and trust me, if you sold, that entire office would buy one for every single desk, so they could all like have a Nerf rocket war, you know, in the middle of the day just to relieve stress. And you would make, I bet you could walk in. Dave, what do you think the cost of that thing is?
Well, I know that when I bought it, I paid something like $18 for it. And I would imagine it was made overseas, as we all know, for, $4 or something.
Right. And I bet you could package a bundle together, sell that to, sell 1,000 of them into an office building for $20 to $30 a piece.
Great,
and come and make huge margin, Nobody, hey, you guys, I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff you got to do. All right. We're running a little long, so why don't we move on?
Did you want to do the legacy technology?
Well, we're gonna get to that in a second, although I think Rich threw another story in here. Rich, do you want to touch on this one?
Yeah, and I'll keep it quick because you're right, we are running a touch long. But this news is so new, it actually broke today, and like the HP thing, but I only learned about this one today, and I haven't even written my article about it yet. That's what I'm doing after the podcast. But Datto has updated its RMM product. This used to be the Autotask RMM system. It's now called Datto RMM. And actually, anybody who's listening to the podcast right now who uses Datto RMM is going to be thinking this is news, because I've been running version 6.5 since December. Why are we talking about this in January? Well, this is officially when Datto sort of made the announcement about version 6.5 shipping. Two key things in that new update to the product. So RMM products in general, and Datto's RMM products specifically, have plenty of functionality for patching operating systems. But there is a massive need for patching as well for all sorts of other kinds of software, third-party products that end users are using out there. Your Adobe readers and what's the Microsoft plugin, Silverlight, and yeah, that's Google Chrome, Firefox. Yeah. But there are a lot of third-party products out there that end users install once, never really update again. They become insecure over time. And, the RMM system can't really do much about it. And so Datto has equipped their RMM now to, it's all policy-driven, but based on your specifications, the tool will go out and the agents will be watching for these third-party products, making sure that only people who should be using them are using them, and then making sure that those products are up to the latest and most secure version automatically. If it sees that somebody out there has an outdated version of Adobe Reader, it will just go and update that for you. So and in the age of ransomware, I mean, anything you can do to close up some attack surfaces is a good thing. So that's one thing that they've added to the product. And then the other thing, they preface this by saying, almost like embarrassed, like, oh, this is just kind of a techie thing. But I imagine there are a lot of technicians who will like this. If you use Microsoft's PowerShell tool on any kind of regular basis when you're working with endpoints remotely, quite often, certainly in the Datto product line now, and quite often in other managed services tool sets, the only way to sort of PowerShell your way into a remote endpoint is to open up a remote access session and kind of interrupt whatever is going on that machine while you're in there working away with PowerShell. And so they've created an encrypted, secure tunneling kind of technology that allows a technician to go directly into that endpoint with PowerShell, do what they need to do without actually opening a full-blown remote access session, taking over that machine, and interrupting anybody. So that's the other big thing that they've got coming out. And it's just kind of worth noting, they are mentioned that they're on a release cadence now where they are updating that product approximately every 6 weeks. So, and this is in keeping with promises that they made around the time Datto and Autotask merge, that they want to be rolling out smaller updates on a more frequent basis. And I've certainly seen them doing that recently with the PSA product, and sounds like they're doing it with RMM too.
Very, very cool. Dave, you a big PowerShell guy?
Yeah, actually, this is really exciting news, Rich, that you were talking about for a couple of reasons. First of all, Autotask, under the Datto logo, I see the development pace picking up and new features coming out, and that's really exciting. This whole thing you're touching on patching, it's a tough point for most solution providers. It's easy to patch Microsoft. There's enough platform tools that are out there, and we all know, quote, Patch Tuesday. And a lot of the RMMs have some good process in place for that. However, these third-party drivers and patching, that's not really been an easy thing. There's been some solutions, but who wants to run 2 or 3 RMM style platforms? You don't. That's high maintenance and training your team. So to integrate that and add it into the platform, I think is really sweet. The other one, Matt, that you were asking about, PowerShell. PowerShell, if it's not here and now, it's absolutely the future. It's the direction everything's going. And it's so funny because years ago, we all remember CLI, the command line interface. And we all wanted to get away from command line interface and go to, drag, drop, and click. Of course, so there is people that resist PowerShell. It's kind of like, I'm not going to do it. But the truth is that PowerShell's extremely powerful, really versatile, and most things that we do today, if you work with the Exchange, I don't care if it's on-prem or cloud, so many things today are PowerShell. So if you haven't dove in and you haven't learned it, well, you need to.
Well, that's true. And it's funny you mentioned Exchange, because I can actually think of many times over the last 5 years I've had to do something with Exchange, and a PowerShell opt command was the only way to do it.
The only way. And it's happening more and more. Group policy as we know it is really going away, and instead you use PowerShell to handle that as well. So PowerShell's really, really powerful. And now the new feature, I mean, we all had the ability before to jump into a command window, just a standard command window behind the scenes, and remotely access a computer. But now to be able to do that with PowerShell, that's nice.
And of course, then every Linux person is like, we've had this for 10 years. you and your draggy clicky, we got the Bash console open, and I'm kind of with those guys too. Yeah, I hear you. Cool. Well, we don't have an interview this week, and Rich, I think I'm historically with this show we kind of separated into chunks and breaks, and we had reasons for doing it. We still kind of do, but I'm kind of becoming anti-break. Should we just get rid of breaks?
Sure. Yeah, let's well, certainly for this week, let's set a record for continuous channel.
Let's see how it goes. Like, yeah. we're just not gonna do a break this week.
Let's call it die-harding. We're just gonna die hard right through.
I like it, and you know what? Hey, listeners, viewers, we've had breaks forever. I think right now we're planning on getting rid of breaks. If you like the breaks, let us know. Which is because the thought was like, oh, we'd have a good, you can listen to a certain point, because this is a long format show. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of discussion. So it's like you can kind of get to a spot and you're like, I got to part 2, and then take a break. I got to part 3, and you kind of do that. And but I guess I don't know, if you don't care, it'll be easier for us if we don't have them.
Well, you just hit the pause button on the podcast, and then when you're ready,
that's the thing.
play.
Like, I guess that, like, why not just do that? I don't know. Well, and the other reason was we've always been hoping that we would get sponsors and have ads, and that was going to be a nice time to put ads in. But we're 104 episodes in, and we haven't really had a whole lot of ads yet. It's still the goal, but we don't necessarily have to take breaks to do ads. We can just put them in there, man. Who knows? So we're a break-free show now, Rich. Unless people complain. Because we had the little jingles that we would play at the breaks. When we put it together and put the audio version out, there's the little jingle that plays, and some people might miss those. So I don't know. But if we don't have to do breaks, it'll be a lot easier here on the video version of the show, the live stream, because they're a pain in the butt. We just kind of like turn all the cameras off and the microphones, and we just kind of sit here for 5 seconds.
Right.
Which is just bizarre. Why do we do it, Rich? Why?
I don't know. It seems so obvious now not to. So,
Dave, this is the fun we have here on ChannelPro Weekly.
I wouldn't miss it.
So, all right. But one thing we are not going to get rid of is the museum and tech pick. Oh no, because I do know that people like the museum and tech picks. We've had people tell us that they like it, and I like it. And Dave likes it, and Rich likes it, and you like it, and your neighbor likes it, and their friend likes it, and Mr. Kitty likes it.
It's amazing the technologies, both current and legacy, that we all randomly have around us. I used to tease people and say if I was an auto mechanic, I would have a backyard with 5 or 6 vehicles parked in my backyard, right? That you're all working on. Instead, we're technology people, so we have a whole bunch of technology laying around for one reason or another.
And one of the reasons why I love having you on, Dave, is because, as we all know, I have a massive amount of old tech in my house. It's a disease. But you also have a whole bunch of old stuff. So when we have you on, I don't have to do a museum pick, because we're going to raid the Dave Museum.
That is so funny. And I do. I mean, when you've been in the same industry for, we'll just be polite and say 30 plus years, you see a lot of things come and go. And I was actually having a fun conversation over the weekend when I was out at another show with some other partners, and we were talking at 2 a.m. You know how it goes. And we were all talking about these things like VisiCalc, SuperCalc, Lotus 123, Quattro Pro, if you know any of those names. ExecuPlan, every single one of them are spreadsheets. And don't forget about Lotus Symphony. My gosh, everybody and their uncle had a spreadsheet. And if you've been, working in different platforms for so many decades, I think you've touched every one of those. I know I have. So I've definitely done my time with SuperCalc and VisiCalc and Quattro Pro and Symphony, and of course, most of them, they're all gone. Excel won the game.
And now Google.
Yes.
And there's been like the open office variant. It's kind of shifted around hands a bit, but that's a solid community driven effort for a productivity suite. That's pretty good.
Yep. And then just to recall your memory, last time I was on the podcast, I pulled out a SGI Octane, a Silicon Graphics Octane computer, and yeah, it's amazing the things that we can. I hate to use the word accumulate, but we, I do tease and say they're not that big. Again, if it was a car and I had a 3-ton vehicle in the backyard, that would be kind of tough. But instead, it's not what we're going to talk about. But sitting here on my shelf happens to be one of the items that I hang on to. And if you can see that, it's actually a computer wafer in a fabrication facility that I visited. And it's a conversational piece, and you can see that it's really not that big. and this holds probably 50 to 70 individual circuits, not circuits, but integrated circuits chips. These get cut out, and then they get mounted inside of silicone, and then they get soldered onto a board. But this is actually what gets, each one of these little tiny squares is what goes inside the silicone when you look at a processor chip. And so a lot of the technologies we have are small items, so it's not that hard to hang on to them, and they make great conversation pieces.
Indeed. All right, well, let's get on to your Dave's museum pick this week. Dave, what do you got for us?
Well, the funny thing is that Matt says to me when the call starts, he's like, Dave, you need to have a museum piece this time. So it's not like I had a lot of notice. But on the other hand, ironically, and not surprising, I was able to reach over and grab something. So I did indeed grab something, and I'll show it to you. Yes, there is a yellow square purposely put onto it as to not promote immediately what it is. And because that would be a giveaway. But just in case the light hits it, I'll kind of give a little rotation there.
Yeah, and for those listening, it's a giant green motherboard.
It is.
Dave will tell you which kind it is, but it's big and it's old and it's like old, lined with rows and rows of ICs, so a whole bunch of ports at the top.
So, and my tip for you is that this is pre 1990. It's also could be and pre 1980. So this is going back a little bit in time. And we'll do the Jeopardy music, so to speak, and let people kind of ferment on it. And then you want to take any guesses, and then I'll say what it is.
Well, I took a guess before we started, and I actually was not able to identify it. I wasn't thinking in that vein. But now Rich knows what it is. That we don't have any guesses in the chat, so why don't we go ahead and tell people what it is?
Sure. So this is an Apple II motherboard. And Apple II goes back to 6502 processor. This motherboard is 1 gigahertz. So I'm sorry, 1 megahertz.
I was saying megahertz.
My bad. 1 megahertz. And I think we were lucky to have 16 meg of memory on it. And this inspired so many lives. This inspired so many people to get into technology. Apple.
Yeah, be careful with your M's. That there was a few different variants of that board, but if you said 16 kilobytes of memory,
oh, nice,
kilobytes of memory.
Corrected. It's been too darn long. And, this was actually the first platform I ever used CPM on. There was a Z80 board that you could plug in and make this into a CPM machine. And CPM is a whole nother topic. Vector Graphic, Osborne, K-Pro, those were all the CPM days. But anyway, Apple II inspired a lot of people. And once again, not really all that large. It's probably, the size of a 8.5 by 11 pad that you might put notes on. So not that hard to hang on to. And believe it or not, it does work. So if you want to listen to synthesized music, as Apple was famous for producing, they had a lot of programs that did synthesized music. I have Bach and so many things. I could still turn around and put power to this. Right here's the power connector. And I could go ahead and put the speaker out on it, and I could still probably play those today.
How good is your integer basic skills?
Believe it or not, you can still do programs in BASIC, and they will. Integer BASIC is another one, but BASIC, I can still crank something out. Scary thought.
Now, I don't know my Apple history well enough to know the answer to this question. That's an Apple II board. Is that a Steve Wozniak design?
I'm going to have to say yes. It would definitely be in the right time. But what's really funny
Steve Wozniak was heavily involved with that board.
Yeah, and what's funny is I actually went to Cupertino to a technical training on Apple II product, if you can believe that. And when the Lisa came out, if anyone ever remembers Lisa, which Apple made. And then after Lisa became the Mac and the Fat Mac, and well, the rest is history. But I actually learned how to repair not only Apple II, but Lisa and Mac and all of those back in the, we're dating ourselves, what is that, the early 80s?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, let's see, that board release date June 1977.
Yep.
With a minimum, it was you could get minimum you could get it with different amounts of memory. 4 kilobytes was the minimum, up to 48, and then apparently there was a 64 at some point.
Now, just for humor's sake, if you want to make anybody cry on the podcast, I'm going to bring up something that will bring tears to their eyes, and that is these memory chips. That there's 3 banks of them right here, and when these boards arrived, they arrived empty, no memory in them, and you used to buy tubes of memory, and you would sit there and pinch these legs a little bit because they were always sprawled out a little bit. And you'd pinch these legs to put the memory in the board. And when you worked at a computer land that sold 200 and 300 computers in a week, you were pinching a lot of these circuit boards and the chips. And let me tell you something. You had the holes in your thumb. They're like needles. They're really sharp. And they made tools, but the tools didn't really work, so you did it by hand. And that's, boy, anyone who's ever done this, you got tears in your eyes already. And you know what that's like when 8 needles go into your finger from those.
Well, that is awesome. So great museum pick. Thank you for sharing that with us. I do have a tech pick to kind of go along with it. So in the veins of motherboards, that was then, this is now. And of course, Intel's got their Core X series of processors that they're doing, the LGA 2066, i9 Core X styles. And I thought, somebody may want to build a machine with that. And why not grab a new motherboard to do that? So my tech pick this week is the Asus TUF X299 Mark I. I'll go ahead and put a picture of it up here for those who are for those of you who are watching. Should have been doing this while you were talking, so pardon me. Sorry. Rich, take it away here for a second.
Yeah, I'm the guy you want to step in impromptu when we're talking about motherboards.
There we go. There it is. So this, there's a lot of there's some standard workstation commercial kind of boards you can get for the Core X series as well. But why do that when you could get something durable and awesome like the TUF X299 Mark I? I mean, look at this.
And I see on there, it's got the vitals, meaning it has dual 1 gig NICs, which is absolutely needed. Matter of fact, when I buy a motherboard like that and I want to use it for virtualization, first thing I do is I buy a add-on 4 or 8 1 gig ports to slap onto it, because you need to get the traffic pushed through it. So that's really key. And I also like the USB 3.1. And a lot of people go, well, that's for gamers. What do you need USB 3.1 for? Let me tell you, when you are backing up terabytes of data and you have 3.1, you really appreciate it.
Amen to that. Yeah. So you definitely got those. You got 3.1 in there, Type A and a Type C port. You got DDR4 memory support, M.2. A really durable VGA kind of bracket holder for big 3D cards, and yep, it's got the dual Intel gigabit LAN on there. It looks nice, and plus it looks good.
Yeah,
look at that bad boy. Yeah, reliability, durability.
So is that an overclock board? I would imagine it is.
You can, I'm sure you can overclock it. It supports Intel Optane. This one will have overclocking functionality built in. ProClock 2 is in there, and they'll have their software, and you can you can do all kinds of stuff. And with the Core i9s, the X series, you can overclock those. The Aura Sync lighting effects are built in. That's becoming a big thing. All these cool lighting effects that boards do. So yeah, that was my my tech pick to go along with your 1977 Apple II board versus crazy motherboard of today. How they have changed, and they don't even make you put on your own ICs.
There you go. What a deal. We'll take it.
So, all right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining us here in episode 104 and being a part of the show. If you can, take a brief second to tell people where they can find you on the internets and on the socials.
Sure, I appreciate that. So a couple places to catch up to me on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Dave Seibert 99. Long story on that one, but Seibert is spelled S-E-I. So Dave Seibert 99 on LinkedIn.
Well, and Seibert 69 was taken, but that,
Nice. I should have known. And if you want to learn about more about the things I do in this industry, because I wear a few hats, you can check out www.daveseibert.com.
Awesome. And don't follow Seibert69. That one's a whole different kind of thing.
Is that kind of like whitehouse.com?
Yes, yeah, probably, yeah. You never know what you're going to see there.
No,
all right.
Not a good idea to do that from the office.
So, Rich, anything else before we wrap up? You didn't do your thing. I'm sorry, I just skipped you because I didn't have my notes up, so I wasn't. Okay. I wasn't looking. I was looking at that motherboard and being like, "Oh, that's awesome." So, Rich, tell us what has been and what will be.
And I'll keep it quick. In terms of what has been, every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com, ChannelPro's own James Gaskin sums that all up in his "In Case You Missed It" post, and he'll be talking this week about actually a bunch of new security solutions from Symantec that came out this week. TigerPaw has a new director of product development. I alluded to the fact they've now got a full-time CEO in place at Intel. And if you are not sick yet of the whole comfort animal phenomenon, we have found somebody who travels with a comfort alligator. James will tell you all about that. And then looking ahead to next week, the ISE Europe conference takes place next week. That's another one of these events where some of the big names in the industry roll out some product updates. So we'll be looking to see if there's any hardware coming next week at ISE Europe. Checkpoint is doing a big annual show. CompTIA is doing its 2019 fly-in, where they descend on Washington, D.C. and make a lot of pleas for IT industry-related policy goodies with members of Congress and so on. That's all coming up next week. Some news as well, and you'll have to just stay tuned to ChannelProNetwork.com to see what it is.
And you can go there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. www.channelpronetwork.com is our website. You can the best way to keep on tabs of Channel Pro Weekly, which we do roughly weekly. It's normally weekly. We promise it will be a week when it comes out. So like this week we did a show. There's another week ahead next week, or even the week after that. One of those weeks afterwards we'll have a show. You like my logic train here, Dave?
I do. I'm liking your animation that goes with it.
So I talk with my hands. Something that most people didn't see before we did this in video form. Anyway, so if you want to keep tabs on Channel Pro Weekly, the best thing to do is subscribe. We're on iTunes, the Google Play Podcast Store. We're here on YouTube. You can subscribe to us here, and you can get RSS feeds for whatever favorite podcast reader you want. We are just about anywhere and everywhere you could possibly imagine. And if we're not there now, we will be there eventually. I think. Something like that. Go with that. If you want to follow us on the social networks, you can find us on Facebook. We are Channel Pro Network on Facebook. We are at Channel Pro SMB on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter, just like it's spelled on the site. Rich, you are?
At Rich Free.
And he's there tweeting all day about his iguana. He poses with it. He takes, he cosplays with it.
And it's amazing how still it sits.
It's very quiet, and yeah, but it's just like a part of him, his special comfort companion. His big giant stuffed iguana. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for episode 104. Thank you so much, Dave, for being on. We will see you in a future show, I am sure. And
Thanks, guys.
And yeah, so we'll see you all then. Take care.